I never pictured myself pouring my heart out to strangers online. But here I am. I need to get this off my chest. It has been eating at me for years. Maybe putting it into words will help me think straight, or at least stop someone else from walking into the wreckage that became my life. I'll start at the beginning. Emily and I met in our sophomore year of college. She wasn't only beautiful. She had a charisma that dragged people into her orbit. She was the center of every party, the person everyone wanted around, and somehow she picked me. I was a quiet type, more into books and late-night debates than wild nights, while Emily was pure electricity, like a firework that brightened the whole sky. We started dating, and within a year I was convinced she was the one. She made me believe in the movie-style love, the kind that makes you think you can take on anything together. After graduation, we married in a low-key ceremony. It wasn't fancy, but to me it was perfect. The first few years felt like what I'd always wanted. We moved into a snug suburban home, started our careers, and talked endlessly about the future. Emily wanted kids, so did I. When we learned she was pregnant with Noah, I felt like I'd hit the jackpot. The day he was born was the happiest day of my life. Holding him, feeling his tiny fingers close around mine, I found my purpose. I was a dad and I loved it. Noah grew into a joyful, curious little boy with Emily's bright eyes and her gift for making people smile. I was proud beyond words. I threw myself into fatherhood. Late night feedings, diaper changes, bedtime stories, every messy, exhausting moment. I loved them all. As the years passed, something began to change. Emily shifted, slowly at first. Longer hours at work, more nights out with friends. She came home distracted, her phone constantly buzzing with messages she brushed away when I asked. When I questioned her, she said she was stressed or needed space. I wanted to trust her, so I did. I told myself it was temporary and things would normalize. Then one day, everything broke. It was a Saturday, and Emily had taken Noah to the park. While tidying the house, I found a sealed envelope tucked in her desk drawer labeled DNA test results. My heart stopped. I don't even know why I opened it. Maybe I assumed it was a medical result, something about Noah's health. The truth was far worse. The results were explicit. Noah wasn't biologically mine. I can't explain the wave that hit me. It felt like the ground vanished beneath me. My mind raced with questions. Why would Emily do this? Was she aware all along who Noah's father was? I wanted to tell myself it was a mistake, but the proof was in black and white. When they returned home, that afternoon, I couldn't find the words. I watched Emily laugh and play with Noah like everything was fine, while my world collapsed. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every memory we had felt contaminated. Had I been living a lie? Did she ever love me, or had I been convenient? For days, I carried the secret, torn between confronting her and the fear of destroying what remained of our family. I loved Noah. He was my son in every meaningful way. But now I didn't know where I stood. Finally, the pressure became unbearable. One evening, I sat Emily down and showed her the test. Her face drained of color. For a moment, I thought she might deny it. Instead, she broke down. She confessed to an early affair, a short fling with a coworker. She swore she only recently learned the test results and that she never intended to hurt me. Her apology felt empty. How could she not have known? How could she hide this for so long? I wanted to shout, to make her feel even a fraction of the pain she caused, but instead I sat there in silence, staring at someone I no longer recognized. That night, I made a decision. I couldn't stay. I packed a bag, left a note saying I needed time to think, and walked away. I didn't know where I was headed, only that I couldn't remain in that house, surrounded by memories that now felt like lies. I left everything, my job, my life, my friends, and I stayed gone for years. I drove until miles blurred and ended up in a small town far away where nobody knew me. It wasn't glamorous, but that was the point. I wanted to vanish, to bury the man I used to be and try to start over. I found work as a handyman. It wasn't anything like my old corporate role, but it kept me busy. I rented a modest apartment and kept to myself. I told myself this was what I needed, a clean break from betrayal, but the ghost didn't go away. Every father I saw with his child reminded me of Noah. I wondered if he missed me, if he wondered where I'd gone. I hated myself for leaving, but didn't know how to return. Thoughts of Emily stabbed at me, her face, her laugh, her lies. To dull the pain, I threw myself into work, taking any job no matter how tedious to numb my mind. Nights were the worst. I replayed our life together, searching for signs I'd missed. Months turned into years, and I built a new identity. Ethan, the quiet fixer who kept to himself. I avoided getting close. Trusting felt like an open door to being hurt again. Then one day, everything shifted. I came home from a day's work to find a letter slid under my door. My heart sank when I recognized the handwriting. Emily's. For a moment, I almost tossed it unread, but curiosity, or some masochistic part of me, opened it. Her note was short. She begged me to come back, said she'd searched for me for years, wrote about Noah asking about me daily and how much he missed his dad. She apologized and said she'd do anything to make things right. I didn't know what to feel. Part of me wanted to ignore her and let her taste the pain I had felt. But another part couldn't deny the truth that Noah was still my son in every way that mattered. I balled the letter up and threw it away, but her words replayed in my head that night. For the first time in years, I began to wonder, could I stay away forever? For days later, I was restless. Her words had cracked open something I'd spent years burying. No matter how hard I tried to push them out, they stuck. I kept replaying her apology and the part about Noah. Did he really miss me? Did he understand why I was gone? The thought of him asking about his dad tightened my chest, but anger flared too. How dare she drag him into this? She was the one who lied and broke us apart. I was haunted by who Noah's real father was, and whether that man was still in their lives. Curiosity, and a need for answers for my own sanity, drove me to act. I called an old friend, Josh, someone I trusted to keep things private. We hadn't spoken in a while, but when he picked up there was a pause, like he couldn't believe it was me. I kept it short and told him I needed to know about Emily and Noah. At first he hesitated, but eventually he relented. They were doing okay. Emily was a wreck since I left, and Noah talked about me constantly. When I asked about the other man, Josh said his name hadn't been around in years. He'd left town not long after Noah was born. That didn't give me closure. If anything, it complicated things more. I thanked Josh and hung up feeling more conflicted than before. A few days later, I wrote Emily a reply. It was brief. I received her letter and agreed to meet, not for us, but so I could see Noah and seek the truth. Mailing that note felt like walking into a fight I couldn't avoid. A week later, she answered. She wanted to meet in the park. Noah liked. She said he'd been asking about me nonstop, and that she didn't want to keep him in the dark any longer. On the day of the meeting, I arrived early, nerves shaking as I sat on a bench watching families play. Then I saw them, Emily holding Noah's hand, walking toward me. Noah's face lit up when he saw me. "Dad!" he shouted, sprinting into my arms. Hearing him call me that broke something open. I knelt as he threw his arms around my neck, and for a moment the betrayal, anger, and doubt vanished. He was just my boy, and I was his dad. Emily watched from a short distance, tears in her eyes. When I finally let Noah go, she stepped closer and murmured, "Thank you for coming." I nodded, eyes fixed on Noah. "We need to talk," I said. We moved somewhere quieter while Noah played nearby under a park employee's watch. Sitting across from her, years of questions pressed on me. "Why?" I asked, voice low. "Why didn't you tell me?" Emily looked down and twisted her hands. "I was scared," she admitted. "I didn't know how to tell you. As time passed, it got harder. I didn't want to lose you." Her words felt like excuses, but I let her speak. She told me about the affair, how she convinced herself it was a mistake she could bury. She said when she learned she was pregnant, she wanted to believe Noah was mine, and she didn't do a test until after he was born because she couldn't stand the thought of breaking me. I clenched my fists. Anger rose. "So you let me live a lie?" I wanted to scream. "You let me fall in love with him knowing the truth." Tears streamed down her face as she nodded, admitting she didn't deserve forgiveness. "Noah loves you, Ethan. You're his dad in every meaningful way." Her words cut, but they were true. The bond I'd formed with Noah was real. No test could erase that. Forgiveness, though, was different. As we sat there, I realized this conversation was only the first of many. The questions kept coming. Did a man ever want to be part of Noah's life? Emily shook her head. When I told him I was pregnant, he said he wasn't interested. He moved away. I never told him about the DNA test. The idea that the stranger had walked away while leaving a child behind made me sick. I pressed on. What would happen when Noah grew up and asked questions? Emily admitted she had hoped they could bury it and raise him together, but I was furious. "You thought you could bury this forever? You don't think he deserves the truth." I paced, anger pounding. But every time I glanced at Noah playing nearby, my rage softened. He shouldn't have to suffer for our mistakes. "I can't forgive you," I told her finally. "Not yet. Maybe never. But I'll be there for Noah. He's the only reason I'm even talking to you." Emily nodded, shoulders slumped. "I don't expect anything from you, Ethan. Thank you for being there for him." I didn't respond. My emotions were knotted. I loved Noah. I resented Emily, and I grieved for the life we'd lost. Leaving the park that day felt like stepping onto a long road whose end I couldn't see. But the truth was out. There was no going back. After that meeting, I couldn't stop thinking about Noah. Seeing him had reawakened feelings I had buried. Love, guilt, and a fierce sense of responsibility. Emily reached out occasionally with updates. Pictures of him playing soccer, funny things he'd said. I told myself I didn't need to respond. That staying informed was enough. But inside, I knew I was avoiding the real issue. When Emily asked if I'd see Noah again, he'd been asking about me nonstop. I couldn't say no. We met at a coffee shop near her house. Noah ran to me like he'd never been gone, shouting "Dad," and wrapping his legs around me. For that hour, talking about school, soccer, and video games. Nothing else mattered. Then he asked the question I feared. "Why did you go away? Did I do something wrong?" His innocence stabbed me. "No, buddy," I said, holding him. "You didn't do anything wrong. I needed time, but I'm here now. I'll always be here for you." He seemed satisfied, but I knew more questions would come eventually. When the visit ended and I watched him walk away, a small spark of hope returned. Maybe I could be the father he deserved. The path forward wouldn't be simple. I had to decide what role to play and how to handle my relationship with Emily. If there was anything left to salvage, I couldn't disappear from his life again. In the weeks after, I began seeing Noah regularly. Emily kept her distance as promised. We'd meet at the park, the coffee shop, or at his soccer games. Each visit reminded me the bond we'd formed couldn't be erased by a DNA result. Noah was my son in every important sense, and I was determined to be there. But Emily's betrayal hung over everything. I couldn't look at her without feeling a blend of anger and sorrow. She'd stolen years of honesty and a future built on truth. Still, she remained part of Noah's life, and that was a reality I couldn't ignore. One day after dropping Noah off, Emily asked to talk. I almost walked away, but something in her face stopped me. She seemed exhausted, carrying a weight. We sat at the kitchen table where we'd once shared family dinners. Memories felt like ghosts around us. "Thank you for spending time with Noah," she began, voice tentative. "It means everything to him and to me." I kept my eyes on the table. "I'm not doing it for you, Emily. I'm doing it for him." She nodded and, hands trembling, said she didn't deserve forgiveness but was sorry. Selfish, scared, and responsible for letting mistakes ruin what we had. Her words were heavy with regret. For a moment I considered unleashing all my anger, but something else occurred to me. She wasn't the same carefree woman I fell for. She was broken like I was. "I don't know if I can ever forgive you," I said at last, voice even. "What you did took away my right to know, and you let me love a child under false pretenses." She listened, shoulders shaking, and didn't interrupt. "Noah is my son, always will be, and for his sake, I'll do what it takes to make this work. That doesn't mean we're okay. It just means I'm not walking away from him." Emily wiped her eyes and managed a small, shaky smile. "That's more than I deserve. Thank you, Ethan." The talk left me with a strange form of closure. I wasn't forgiving her, but the roles were clear. Noah was my focus. Over the next months, things settled into a new rhythm. I spent weekends with Noah, taking him to the park, helping with homework. He thrived, and for the first time in years, I felt I was making a positive difference. But the past kept tugging. One evening, while helping him assemble a model car, he asked, "Dad, why don't you live with us anymore?" I froze, dropping a tiny piece. I'd expected that question, but wasn't ready. I tried to explain gently. "Your mom and I have things to sort out," I said. He looked worried. "But you still love me, right?" he asked. "Of course," I replied, hugging him. "I love you more than anything. That will never change." His question lingered in my mind as I lay awake later. Sooner or later he'd need the full truth, and I wasn't sure how to give it without breaking him. A thought emerged. I had to confront Noah's biological father. If that man was out there, he should know the harm he'd caused, and perhaps I could find some closure. Tracking him down wasn't as hard as I feared. The DNA report had the name Andrew. An online search turned up an old LinkedIn profile indicating he'd moved to another state and shifted into finance. Part of me wanted to leave it be and move forward, but years of unanswered questions pushed me to act. I contacted him anonymously at first, using a fake email, and asked to meet about something from his past. Surprisingly, he agreed and asked to meet at a coffee shop. I drove 3 hours to his town. When I walked in, I saw him right away, tall, clean-cut, that confident look that made my blood boil. He glanced up as I approached. "Are you the one who emailed me?" he asked. "Yes," I said, sitting down. "We need to talk about Emily." His face froze briefly. Then he smirked, almost amused. "Emily," he repeated. "Haven't heard that name in a long time. What does she have to do with this?" I told him flatly. She got pregnant while married to me. She hid it, and by the time I found out my life had fallen apart. Andrew's expression shifted between guilt and irritation. He claimed he didn't know she was married, that it had been a fling, and that when she said she was pregnant, he wasn't ready to be a dad. He said he didn't force her to keep the baby. His casual dismissal of it all made my blood boil. "So you knew she was pregnant and you left?" I asked. He sighed and said he was young and stupid, not ready, and that he didn't think she'd have a baby. The way he brushed it off enraged me. "Well, she had the baby," I said. "For years I raised him as my own, and now I'm supposed to just accept this?" Andrew looked uncomfortable and said he couldn't just drop his life to step in. He'd moved on, had a family of his own. I wasn't asking him to be the father. I only wanted him to understand the damage his choices had caused. After a pause, he admitted he screwed up and apologized. His apologies sounded empty, but I had what I came for, the truth. Standing, I told him that Noah was a better kid than Andrew deserved, and left the coffee shop a mix of anger and relief. Confronting him hadn't fixed everything, but it pulled a ghost into the light. On the drive back, I thought about Noah and the kind of father I wanted to be. I couldn't change the past, but unlike Andrew, I wouldn't walk away. Noah deserves stability, love, and honesty. That realization made the next step clear. We had to tell Noah the truth eventually. He was too bright and curious for us to keep hiding things. I decided to approach Emily first. Despite my resentment, we needed to handle this as a unit. The following weekend, after a visit with Noah, I asked Emily to meet me in her driveway. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows, and she looked nervous, bracing herself. We need to tell him, I said bluntly. Not the whole story. Not yet, but some truth. He shouldn't grow up thinking he'd done something wrong. Emily's eyes widened. Ethan, he's just a kid. He's not ready. I shook my head. He's already asking questions and blaming himself. Do you want him to carry that guilt? She crumpled and looked away. What do we even say? How do we explain this? She whispered. I had turned this over all week. I didn't have every answer, but I believed honesty was the only path. We would keep it simple. Adults sometimes make mistakes that hurt people. None of it is his fault, and it doesn't change how much we both love him. Emily agreed, but insisted we both be there when we told him. That evening, we sat Noah down in the living room. He looked between us, concern on his face. Am I in trouble? He asked. Kneeling to his level, I said, No, buddy, you're not in trouble. We need to talk about something important. Emily reached for him, voice shaking, and explained that his dad and I weren't living together because we made grown-up mistakes. He asked what kind. I chose my words carefully. It's complicated, but none of it is your fault. Your mom and I love you, and that will never change. He glanced down, gripping Emily's hand. Is that why you don't live with us? I nodded. That's part of it. But no matter what, I'll always be here for you. Tears came to his eyes. He hugged me tight and said, I love you, Dad. I whispered it back, and Emily joined the embrace. In that moment, it felt like we started to heal, not as a couple, but together as parents for our son's sake. In the months that followed, Emily and I settled into a co-parenting rhythm. She went to therapy to work through guilt and regret, and I focused on rebuilding a relationship with Noah. One night, tucking him in, he asked, Dad, are you happy now? The question surprised me. I thought about the years of pain, betrayal, and uncertainty, and realized that for the first time in a long time, I felt like myself again. I think I'm getting there, I said, smiling. Having you in my life helps. He grinned. Me too. Leaving his room that night, I felt a peace I hadn't felt in years. The scars remained, but they didn't have to define us. Noah and I had a future to build, one day at a time.